Hey friends, welcome back to the Book Talk Etc. YouTube channel. We're so glad you're here and we love making these videos as an accompaniment to the podcast, and it's our way of adding something a little bit extra, and we love connecting with you in the comments. So this week we read books from our favorite authors, so in the comments below, leave us a list of your favorite authors and maybe we'll discover some new ones. Hey, what was that?
Sorry.
That was so good. It sounded like a sound effect. I can't do it like that.
I use my own voice when I do the popping sounds on TikTok because I can never find the right popping sound.
That's fantastic. No, it's really a good popping sound. I know that sounds
Thank you.
insane, but I use them in CapCut and I can never find the right one.
Right. I'll just have to send you some recordings
yours.
of me going.
I can make some.
Hey, that's pretty good.
That one was better than most. Welcome to Book Talk Etc., a podcast bound to grow your TBR. I'm Tina from TBR Etc.
And I'm Hannah from Handpicked Books.
This is a conversational podcast about books and more from two Midwest mood readers who are easily distracted by new releases. And this week, we read titles from our favorite authors.
If you enjoy listening, we'd love for you to follow us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And if you have a quick minute, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing us on social media. It truly helps us connect with other book lovers.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Tina. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm also great. I've been dying to ask, how are the Cubs doing?
Hannah, this is our subject.
It is?
Are out. Yeah, they're out.
Dang.
But they came back. And we got to a game 5, which was it's a 5-game series, and we did indeed lose. It's okay. It is okay. We lost to Milwaukee.
But it seems like you've moved on. You're having a good day.
Yeah, I have indeed moved on. We've been watching at this point, the Dodgers beat up on the Brewers, which is making me have a little bit of schadenfreude. So sorry to any Brewers fans, but I was going to explain it, but I was like, never mind. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I won't get too far into it because this is not a baseball podcast. Surprise, shockingly, I don't know that much about what's going on, but at any rate, we are moving on. I wanted to comment on you. You have a new background here. It looks lovely.
I do. I'm so excited to actually have a recording space that I really like. So I'm excited to have those shelves back there. And we were going to put them in the living room, but then I was like, no, I want to have them like in my space in my office. Mm-hmm. So we have another smaller shelf that we'll put in the living room. But for now, my big boy shelves are back here with me.
They look so good. And I am like itching to I'm like, okay, so now I want to dive into the screen and look at the books you've got. I want to manipulate.
Well, don't look too closely because right now there's no organization to this. I just wanted to get the books on the shelf. So I've got my read and unread books hugging. I've got no genre sorting happening. So, type A people, if you're looking too closely, you might
not love it.
You might not love
it. They would definitely struggle if they were looking at my organization or lack thereof behind me. These are all of my unread books, but we were talking before the show started recording. We were talking before the show. I am taking a day off work next week to organize my books. Yes, that's how I want to do it. That's self-care. That's how I'm spending my time. And I can't wait. I'm excited to donate a bunch. I'm excited to get things in places that I want them to be in. But at any rate, for now, we will tell you a little bit more about the books that we read for this week's episode. This week, we were focusing on reading books from our favorite authors. And as we were prepping for this, Hannah, I was like, I could not name one of your favorite authors. I actually have no idea. I don't know. And later for Book Talk, we'll share our favorite authors. But I actually can't think of them for you.
Well, I think that makes sense. And again, it's something we can talk about later because I do feel like I'm not a completionist when it comes to authors. Mm-hmm. I very often will read a couple books by an author and love them and then collect all of their books. But then I get distracted by new releases and things like that as it goes. But we can chat more about that when we get to it.
Excellent. All right. I'll begin with my loving lately, and my loving lately is book related. I am so excited about this. It's what I'm calling an unnecessary necessity because nobody needs this, but I love that I have it because it is a Bookaroo pen pouch. And I'm showing
Cute.
Hannah it right now. Basically, it, as the name suggests, it is a pouch for your pens. And I will take it off so you can see it here. It's a little pouch attached to this piece of elastic. And what I am using it for is to keep, let me not rip my cover, heaven forbid. Hold on. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. Okay, here it is. This is what it looks like. It is just a little pouch attached to this piece of elastic. And what it's for, it's to keep your annotation supplies handy or, whatever. You could put whatever you'd like in here. I also plan to put some tabs in here, but you just keep your little annotation supplies handy. And then whatever book you're reading, you can attach it to. Now, the book that I'm holding right now, it's a hardcover. It's my current read. It's called The Wilderness by Angela Flournoy. So I'm reading this, not bringing it to the show today because I'm not done. But look, it looks like it wouldn't fit on it because it looks to be too small.
Mhm.
But because it's the elastic, it stretches to fit a standard hardcover. So you can use this on paperback or hardcover, and it does not damage your book unless you're like me and trying to rip it off too quickly. But it doesn't do anything to your book. And they have multiple colors. It says it can hold up to 3 pens. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I suppose we could try, but I probably would just put maybe a few tabs in here and then a pen. It's like not bulky at all. They
I kind of
also
like that
have,
though.
me too. I don't want much. I've seen bigger things where you have a bunch of sticky notes and you've got like multiple pens and a
But
highlighter. No,
you don't
I just want a
need all of
pen and a
that.
highlighter. Right.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Because if
Keep it
it's simple, I'm
simple.
going to keep it. I'm going to
Yep.
continue to use it. I think this is great for any book lovers. You could also use it for your planner. If you're somebody that has a planner like I do and you're always looking for a pen, I usually just jam it in the side, but I think this is a much more elegant solution. I grabbed this. I visited a new independent bookstore last week when I was in Champaign. So it's in Champaign, Urbana, and it was the cutest bookstore. And they had these. And so I grabbed one. I was like, I must get one. They also are on Amazon, though. So I will link to that in case you want to pick up one of your own. It's one of the things that's very simple, but it's bringing me a lot of joy. So my loving lately is my Bookaroo pen pouch.
I love the name too.
Me
Bookaroo. Bookaroo
too.
pen pouch.
Bookaroo. It's
That's
very
so
sweet.
cute.
And I should say too, they also have other colors. Mine, I think, is the rose gold or the gold.
I
They
like
had
that color.
brown, they had black, and they had pink. And I almost went for pink, and I was like, "You're not a pink girl, sister. Just
Sure.
be who you are." So
Just be who you are. But it sounds like they have a color and a style that would match
they
any kind of, style or vibe.
aesthetic, exactly. You got it.
Yes. Okay, my loving lately is a recipe, and
Ooh.
this is one that we made last week through the moving process, and we wanted easy meals that we didn't have to heat up, that were filling and nutritious, that we could have while we were on the go and very busy. And this is the sun-dried tomato orzo pasta salad, and it's from Female Foodie. And this pasta recipe is about to become a meal planning staple for us because it is packed with great protein, carbs, and it's super veggie rich too. And it's really filling without making you feel lethargic, which is my favorite feeling. It has the sun dried tomatoes in it, which I'd only ever had in soups or marry me chicken recipes, but it was really yummy in this salad. You cut them really thin so you're not chomping on like really chewy sun-dried tomatoes. You cut them really thin and then use the oil of the sun-dried tomatoes for the dressing. And it just pairs really well with the roasted chickpeas and the cherry tomatoes. Tina, I know you love cherry
I love it.
tomatoes.
Love it. I really do.
And yeah, and fresh herbs. And there's also feta cheese in there. It's just such a good balance of foods. And we put some rotisserie chicken in it too to just add a little bit of extra protein. And that tasted great and lasted really well in the fridge for a couple of days. This is a great recipe to batch prepare and put into lunch containers to have throughout the week. And it's going to become a new staple for us. And that is the sun dried tomato orzo pasta salad from the Female Foodie.
I need that immediately in my life. That sounds like a Tina recipe.
I
Jonathan
think
always
so.
says I could just eat olives, tomato, cheese, and pasta and like be good. And that's
There you
true.
go.
That's like my staple. Do your
It could be
kids eat this
worse.
one? Right.
Oh, no.
I was gonna
Oh,
say
no. Definitely
I was
not.
gonna say, I am very impressed that they're eating sun-dried tomatoes just because I
No.
know my kids are like, yeah, no, we're not doing that."
No, and we're in a unique well, not unique because I know so many parents relate to this problem, but we're in a season with food right now where we basically batch prepare our own dinners and meals because it's so exhausting trying to make
Yes.
something for the whole family. And like usually I would say 3 to 4 nights a week, we just make something for the kids and make a meal for them. And then if we get sick of doing that, which we often do, it's nice for us to have a meal prepared in the fridge that's nutritious and easy and something we can just throw in the microwave or on the stove
Yep.
that's already made because we're putting work into
Making the
kids'
kids'
food. So
foods.
I know
Well,
people
that's
have
nice.
feelings about that, but that's what we're doing for our family right now.
I don't have any feelings about that. Are your
I
kids
lo-
eating? Fantastic. Then
I-
I
you're my kind of
like,
person.
yeah,
That's how
no
I feel
feelings.
too.
No feelings here. Oh boy, but I ever have feelings about my latest read? It is a
Ooh.
book that is okay.
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's just dive right in. This book is cursed. Would you look at that?
Oh,
It is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. And I'm holding this very gorgeous edition of it. It's a hardcover. It's got green sprayed edges. It is just simply absolutely
grotesque.
spooky. It's grotesque. Thank you. What a fantastic word. Even look at this. I'm holding up the spine. You have a picture of this young girl, Reagan, and this does indeed glow in the dark. So I love
Ooh.
this edition. Thanks to Harper for sending it because that's what inspired me to finally pick this up and read it. Of course, I had heard of The Exorcist, like in culture. I'd never seen the movie. I absolutely never will. That is not something I'm willing to do. But
Oh,
I
me
am
neither.
willing to read the book. So I would consider this to be a classic American horror novel, and it was originally published in 1971. I was reading this. Apparently, it remains one of the most controversial novels ever, and I can see why,
Mm.
because the content is something else. But apparently, it spent 57 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, and 17 of those weeks were consecutive at number one. So this was a big
Wow.
hit, right? I don't think I
At the
realized
time it was
how
published?
big. Yeah, that's what this says. Yeah.
Which is probably why they made it into a movie.
Which is probably why they made it into a movie, and apparently it's also a television show, which I didn't know.
I
So,
didn't either.
another thing I didn't know is this is inspired by the true story of a child. So, I'll tell you a little bit about that too.
Tell
But
me
this is a
more.
I know.
I
This is
didn't
about
know.
demonic possession in the and so essentially it focuses on Reagan. Reagan is an 11-year-old girl who's the daughter of a famous movie actress, and they live in Washington D.C. And this thing that I've sorry, this is like commentary about The Exorcist. I'll read you the actual synopsis here. All right, so Reagan's the daughter of this very famous actress named Chris. And sometime after her birthday, I think she's like turning 12, everything was normal. And then as soon as she hit this particular age, things just got wild. Her personality completely changed. She was exhibiting disturbing behavior. She wasn't sleeping. Her personality totally changed. And so they brought in mental health professionals and they couldn't figure it out. They brought in medical doctors and they couldn't figure it out. And so the mom is at her wit's end and she comes across priests and essentially enlists in their help. There's essentially two Catholic priests that get brought into the home, and they will risk everything, including their own souls, to free the girl from the ancient, malevolent force possessing her. And that is what this is about. I picked it up. I'm creeped out, frankly. Let me put it down. So
And like the cross on the spine
I know.
too.
It's just so
Woo.
blasphemous. I just can't even. So I'm reading this, right? I knew it was published in 1971. And I'm like, I can't imagine what people thought when this came out. Like, I just can't imagine the reaction that this had because it is scary. It's profane. I mean, it's shocking. I, I will say I'm not somebody that is overly religious. So some of the details probably went over my head, but I'm like, oh, this is controversial
Enough to make you uncomfy.
enough to make me uncomfy, which, that takes a lot. And I will say I'm holding the physical copy, but I also did the audio for this. I The audio was fantastic. So the audio book is narrated by the author William Peter Blatty, and he deserves an Oscar for this narration. I'm not even kidding. His voice is, first of all, his just regular speaking voice is incredible, but also the voices he did of Reagan when the demon is coming out.
Oh.
I mean, that was enough to give you nightmares. I was telling my friends this. I was driving to the city one day and I was in a parking garage and I was underground and it's echoey. And I had my windows down because it was really hot. And I'm listening to this book and it's just like, and then, and I'm like, I am going to be pulled over. Like, people are going to think that I'm like actually having a psychotic break. I mean, because it was like reverberating through the walls
I
in this
was not
parking garage. I'm
expecting
like,
that
oh
to
my
be the
God.
voice.
It was, well, not the whole time, but like when the demon's coming out, I mean, the audiobook narrator goes for it. It was
Oh my
incredible.
gosh.
So this book is genuinely scary. I had a good time reading it. It took me a moment, frankly, to get into it though, because it's sort of dated and like the language. I'm like, okay, am I gonna like this? But once you get to the point where Reagan changes, which happens about maybe 20% in, if that, I'm like, okay, the wheels fall off and you are just sucked into this very disturbing tale. This is a 2-book series. I guess there's a book 2. I feel complete. I don't think I'll be picking that up unless I'm like overly called to it. I just feel like I got the story and I got where I wanted to go with this. So of course, though, I saw that this was based on a true story. And apparently there was a 13-year-old boy in 1949. He was known as Ronald Doe. He was believed to be possessed after his spiritualist aunt's death and his use of a Ouija board. So I guess
Hmm.
this little boy like did this, and this is allegedly the true story, right? And so there were several priests who came to this boy and performed between 20 and 30 exorcism rituals on the boy.
Hmm.
And the movie obviously dramatizes, I think, these events, but the real case, the author had heard about this real case and became really intrigued and decided to create this entire story about that. I mean, it's freaky and perfect, I think, for this holiday season, this Halloween season. So, my latest read was The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty.
I will say that I I wonder if one of the reasons why this wasn't such a popular book when it came out is because evangelical Christians, I'm pretty sure at the time, were also very obsessed with this book and were, I think, reading it. I don't think, I do know and have sources, had to read it as a part of their spiritual curriculum as well in churches because they believed there are branches, of Christians who believe that these things are real and they have to know how to fight and combat it.
Yes.
So that was actually like a
Wow.
part of their curriculum. So I do wonder if it wasn't popular kind of on both ends, people that just
Right.
were fascinated by horror and maybe there weren't other books like this out there yet to this extreme. And then you literally had Christians reading it because it was a part of
Yes.
their curriculum.
Wow,
So
I'm so
very
glad you
interesting.
shared that because it is very and I do gather that the author is religious. And so
Hmm.
again, me not like I said, I think a lot of it I'm like, I don't know if this is real, if this is how it would actually be handled or like what the thought process is here. That is so fascinating to hear and makes a lot of sense because it felt real, I guess. It felt like a real exorcism. And like not that
Yeah.
I would know, but I'm like, wow, you really have done your research. So, ooh,
Ooh,
yee.
fascinating. I
Okay, move
know.
on. Do you have a
Gives you the
rom-com for
chills.
me?
I don't have a rom-com. I
Okay.
do have another thriller, but it is, I'll say, it's a little bit lighter than the subject
Okay.
we were just tackling. I recently read This is a Safe Space by Lucinda Berry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I texted Tina about this one and asked if I could give it a listen because Tina has brought some Lucinda Berry in the past as well. And I know she's an author that Tina pays attention to as well. But this is something that I listened to while unpacking and moving boxes. It's about Jenna, who is a successful therapist with trust issues of her own, and she has promised to stop snooping in her husband Colton's phone. But on one night, she gives in to the temptation, and what she finds is a disturbing exchange about a dancer from a bachelor party who is threatening Colton's cousin, Bodie. The woman's name, Lexis Chardonnay, sounds familiar and for good reason because Jenna has heard this name before from one of her clients, Caitlin, who is a med student and part time dancer who disappeared from therapy 3 months ago. She's been worried about where Caitlin is. And Jenna starts to replay old sessions of theirs because she's looking for answers. She is disturbed by what she saw on Colton's phone. She's worried about Caitlin and she starts to uncover some dangerous connections that could not only destroy her career and her marriage, but also just her general well being and peace of mind. Like I said, I listened to this while I was unpacking books in my office the other day, and it was such a fun, short audiobook to listen to while working. I guess I am biased, but I think that the audiobook is the way to go with this one. You get to listen to their therapy sessions recorded, and it's in this kind of mixed media format. So you can tell when it goes to the recording of the therapy session because of the filter and the way it sounds, and the voice actors and actresses did such a good job. It came through really well on audio. So many ethics are at stake in this one because Jenna is a therapist and she crosses so many ethical lines in this story. She was an unreliable narrator, but one that was honestly really entertaining for me to follow. I was able to figure some things out, but I was still surprised by a couple things at the end. And I like that. I like the satisfaction of being able to put some of the puzzle pieces together and then still getting a surprise as well. This book is definitely not as heavy as the other books that I have read from her and ones that I have heard other people talk about. I read The Perfect Child by this author, and it is definitely not as heavy as that one. I think, Tina, you've talked about Saving Noah on the show before.
Yeah.
It is not like that. There is some sexual assault that happens off page. There is definitely stalking, but nothing talked about or mentioned even as a primary theme in this one was nowhere near as graphic or heavy or just terrible to read about as some of her other books. So, from what I know of where Lucinda can go with her themes, this was tame. There's not much else to say about this one except it was just an entertaining audiobook and fun thriller, and I would recommend it for a good time. And that is This Is a Safe Space by Lucinda Berry.
Now, would you call this a bubblegum read for you?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Definitely. Like, it's one
Okay.
that I recommend. I guess time will tell because I do
Yeah.
sometimes think that I won't consider it a bubblegum book if for whatever reason it stays with me for a really long
Yeah.
time.
I feel that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think yes, just for
Entertainment
today's
factor,
is
it
yeah, for
works.
entertainment factor, absolutely.
I just downloaded it on audio. So thank you for that
You're welcome.
recommendation. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
only 3 hours and 30 minutes. That's an afternoon.
Yes. And I thought that it was the perfect length for this book too. I think a lot of thrillers could stand to be a little shorter in my personal opinion because I don't know, it just makes them just really fast and entertaining
Yeah.
and sometimes that's nice.
Sometimes that is nice. I agree. And I'm excited to chat. You had mentioned Lucinda Berry, and yes, I would consider her to be on my long list of favorite authors because, and I mentioned that because that's what we're talking about today. We read books from our favorite authors. So we had a couple of questions that we wanted to ask each other, as we preface our book reviews. And I guess my first question is, are there any authors for whom you've read their whole catalog?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I didn't know this was also not something that I deeply looked into before. I, listed down some of my favorite authors and some other things, but I guess I didn't think about this. That's a good question. I have to look to make sure, but off the top of my head, no.
Yes. You know what though? I would think in my head, I'm like, of course, there's authors I've read their whole catalog. I really like them. And then I'm like, crickets. For me, there's only two. There are
Okay.
only two authors that I've read their whole entire catalog. And when I say whole entire catalog, I want them to have at least 4 books. Like, if they have 3,
Yeah.
I'm not counting that yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why, just in my head, I need them to have more than 3 books available for it to be a real catalog, but I've only read 2, and they are Riley Sager and Rachel Harrison.
Ooh.
And the only
And
reason
Rachel Harrison was done this year, right?
They both were actually,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
And I was gonna say the only reason I went back and read their books was because I was so close and I wanted to do a video ranking them. Specifically Sager's because his books are so polarizing. And then I thought, you know what? I'm really
Yes.
close to finishing Rachel Harrison's. Let me do that as well. So it was actually quite fun to read a singular author's books in close succession because I feel like it helped me appreciate their writing more. And you can almost see their writing develop as you go on. And specifically with Rachel Harrison, they actually, both authors had new books come out this year, which prompted my project. But with Rachel Harrison, I feel like the ones that I was reading leading up to her new release helped me appreciate it even more because there's a lot of similarities. I was like, wow, she always writes, books set sort of in New Jersey, New York area. Wow, her characters are always going out to breakfast. She really must like pancakes. Like I was able to pull out some of those specifics, which if I had spread them out, I probably wouldn't have noticed, but it was fun to start to see
Mhm.
some of those themes. I do now have a list of authors that I want to finish their catalog, and I will tell you who they are. I would love to read John Mars's catalog. He just has so many that I'm like, it's
Mhm.
almost difficult to try and get to them, but I'm about halfway through John Mars. Although, yeah, I'll keep going, I guess. I only have one left of S.A. Cosby, which I hopefully
Yep.
will get to soon.
My
I
Darkest
would
Prayer, right?
Yes, his
Mhm.
debut, and for some reason, I'm, like, not excited to read
Super
it, which
excited about it.
yeah, I don't know why that is, and I plan to catch up on an author that I'm going to share later. That's
Okay.
not really a great yeah, there's one more author who has a book coming out in 2026 that I'm gonna catch up with so that I can do a ranking series with her. But I would
Fun.
love to, of course, eventually get through all of Stephen King's titles, but there's about
Ugh.
600 of those at this point, so I don't know if
And
that's in the cards.
the reason why I struggle with the Stephen King one is because of his Gunslinger series. I don't particularly want to read
Oh,
that.
mhm. I have read the first 2 books in the Gunslinger series, and I didn't continue. Will I someday? Sure. I would love to, but
Okay.
it would help it would really, take a lot for me, I think, to go back into it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, me being who I am, I think I have to go back and reread some. I don't, but, like, I'm like, "Wouldn't that be fun to go back from the beginning and, like, read all of his books in order?"
Mhm.
It would be
Oh,
fun.
that would
It
be a fun challenge, but it would
Yeah.
take some time.
It would take a long time, so I don't know that that's in my immediate future. I know one of our listeners was doing that, Genevieve. She was doing that with, I think her family, I wanna say, and they were,
Mhm.
like, going through an order, which I think sounds so fun. The reason I'm intimidated by that project, 1, there's so many books, but 2, I'd have to go back and reread The Stand, which is one of my all-time favorite books, but it's also over 1,000 pages,
But
so I'm
why would you
very
have to
intimidated.
reread it?
I was if I don't. Basically, I do not have to do that, but I like the idea of reading them in order.
I
So
see,
if I
in
did that,
chronological
if I
publishing
did it
order?
in chronological publishing order, I'd have to go back through The Stand, and that was
Fair
like a
enough.
big boy. So I'd have to
It is a
really
big
work
boy.
myself into that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think that the author that I'm the closest to completing, and I think that this challenge would be very doable for me, is Emily Henry.
Oh,
I've only
yes.
not read, I think, one of her young adult books. I think I've read every single one of her adult romances. And then I've also read A Million Junes, which is one of her YA titles. So I think that I would only need to read one more book to finish her entire catalog. I should do it.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's, like, on your to-do list now
It's got to
for
be on my goals list.
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
It's just fun. I don't know what it is. Like, when you get close, I'm kind of like, "Ooh, I kinda wanna finish out this project."
Why not?
Why
I
not?
I also do want to, I think some other doable ones for me that I've always just kind of wanted to do is read all of Toni Morrison and all of James
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Their stories are so compelling and their writing is really beautiful. They're kind of modern classic authors and their books are pretty small and palatable for,
Right.
being these classics that everybody loves. And I would love to say that I've read all of Toni Morrison and James Baldwin's collection.
I think you're right. That would be a really you'd feel so accomplished having
I
done
would.
so.
I feel
I
so academic.
I would feel so academic too. I read a couple from both. Well, actually, I've only read one Baldwin
Yep.
and then a couple from Morrison, but of course, enjoyed them. I looked at Stephen King's Wikipedia, and apparently he has 65 novels slash novellas, which doesn't feel right. I feel like there's way more, but apparently
65.
that's what Wikipedia tells me. So
Hmm.
who knows? Who's to
What's
say?
your before we move on from our
Of
questions, I'm curious,
course,
what's your
yeah.
most obscure Stephen King read that you have read
My most
that like nobody
obscure.
talks about?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm rolling down his big list here. I don't know that many people know that I read The Dark Tower. The Gunslinger is the first
That
one. That one
surprised
I
me.
don't talk about. I don't know. There's not much to say on that one for me. Because a lot of his, you're right, I do find that I talk about. Let me see.
Mine is Joyland. I feel like I don't
Joyland.
see
Ah,
many people talk
yeah.
about that one as much, and it's one that I think people would be surprised to hear that I have read.
I am surprised because that one's a little bit more hard boiled crime,
Yes.
would you say?
Yes.
Is that okay? I'm
It's
like,
one
am
of
I
his
right on
crime
that?
on like his crime
Uh-huh.
list, and there's also some paranormal elements as well. But
Yeah. I don't think I have any that other than the not the Green Mile. I did read that one other than the first two Dark Tower series.
yeah, that surprised me.
First two Dark Tower books.
Yeah.
Anyway, I also wanted to know a little bit more about who your favorite authors are, and I asked this question and you sort of proposed a counter question which was what?
Do we have any guidelines or parameters for what
Mhm.
makes an author a favorite of ours? For
Yeah.
example, we have to have read and loved two or more of their books, or we
Uh-huh.
have to have given at least 3 of their books 5 stars, etc.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I would say my parameters are. I have some authors that I loved some of their books, and then there's some others that I was like, this was okay.
Yep.
So now I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would need more data, I guess. I'm
Mhm.
not saying they're not among my favorite and they're not among my auto read authors. I would just need more data, before I
Yeah.
make that designation.
I think I do too. I did list some authors that came to top of mind, but then when I was
Mhm.
listing their books, it was like, okay, I've given 2 of their books 5
Yeah.
stars,
Yeah.
but there are so few of those favorite authors that come right to the top of my head where I've
Yeah.
read 5 plus books from them.
Right. No, literally, and I was trying to think through, and unfortunately for me, I, like, couldn't even come up with I put 5 on our little sheet there, but I'm like, "I don't know if I have 5." Like, I really am not sure. Of course, we'll just go with the obvious Stephen King, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we were just talking about him. He is one of my favorite authors, if not maybe my favorite author, but also coming in hot behind him is Charlotte McConaughey that I talk about
Mhm.
her books often. I actually just realized she has older books. I thought her debut was
The
Once There
wolf
Were
one?
Wolves,
Yeah.
but it's actually not. She has other books. So now I'm like, well, now do I have to go back and try and source those? I mean, maybe I will. And then my third is S.A. Cosby,
Yes.
obviously. I mean, what a treasure.
And I've given both the books by S.A. Cosby that I have read at least a 4.5.
Yeah.
So definitely in the running there. If I read another book by him, and I want to, like now that I've read 2 that are 4.5/5 stars,
Yeah.
okay, that's now an author that I'm going to be looking out for, and I'm going to read their stuff and maybe go into their back catalog and read their older things too. Also, Charlotte McConaughey, I've read Migrations and her newest Wild Dark Shore
Mhm.
with the
Ugh,
rest of the Book Talk Etc. community, which was such a fun discussion. And now I need to read And Once There Were Wolves, which I haven't yet.
I think
And now
you'd
she's
like
got a
it.
backlist that you said. I didn't know
I
that either.
know. I know. I just saw it the other day because I was planning on I'm like, oh, if she comes out with another one, I can do, I'll go rank her novels. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's others. What do you mean?
Yeah. One that's on my list as an author that I want to continue following is Dolan Perkins Valdez. She wrote Take My Hand
Yes.
and Happy Land. Loved both of those. Those are her
Right.
only 2 books, though. So she's just one that I'm going to continue to read. And then at some point, I will be able to say I've read her whole catalog.
I like that. Yes, another one for me is Lily Brooks Dalton. She wrote The Light Pirate, which is a novel that
Yes.
I initially DNF'd and then I reread it a year later. It
And
changed
loved
my
it.
brain chemistry. I loved it. I also loved her book Good Morning Midnight. I've not read Motorcycles I've Loved, a memoir. which was from
Mm.
2015. But I saw that Lily Brooks Dalton has a 2026 book coming out called Ruins, and I am
Oh,
excited.
that's exciting. I didn't know
Very,
that.
very exciting. All right, so those are the ones that came to my mind when I was thinking about my favorite authors. Now I feel like I need a spreadsheet and I need to go in and be like, okay, I need to show the ranking. Like now my brain is whirling as it does. But I want to know,
Mhm.
what are your favorite authors that you wrote down?
Yeah, so I wrote down Lynn Painter because I have read 3
Ah,
of her young adult romances, Better Than the Movies, Betting on You, and Fake Skating. I loved all of those. And then I also wrote down Abby Jimenez because even though I didn't
yep.
love her most recent release, I have loved her other books so much that
Yes.
I'm not gonna base my opinion of her on that one book that I read that was kind of a dud for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still gonna look out for her books. And then I also put down Celia Lasky because I've
Mm-hmm.
read Under the Rainbow and So Happy for You, and I loved both of those. So I want to continue to read her. She has a new release that I haven't read yet, and I want to. And then I want to
Yes.
go through Emily St. John. And then I want to go through Emily St. John Mandel's catalog. I've only read 2 books by her, which I feel is such a shame because Station 11 is like my favorite book of all time. And then I read The Glass Hotel, but I want to go and read all of her books because I know they all kind of take place in a world that intersects, and I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that like all of her books did that. So I am really wanting to read all of her books. Were there any other authors that you had written down?
You just reminded me that yes, Kia Abdullah is one of my favorites.
Mhm.
And I almost though so maybe I'll just treat this as an outlier because she wrote a book called, I think it's like Those People Next Door, or maybe that was the UK title. I really didn't like that book. I really was like, oh gosh, I didn't care for it at all. In the US, it's called Perfectly Nice Neighbors, not my fave, but I loved Take It Back and Next of Kin. And she has some other ones too. So I think I'm going to need more data, but she is like on the long list for one. Maybe I'll just consider that one an outlier. I think with that, we've officially, given the listeners enough of a picture, I think, of who we are as readers and who our favorite authors are. Now that I think about it, Abby Jimenez, I would have gotten for you. I would have gotten there in the end. But the other two surprised me. So I'm glad that we had this chat. I will dive right in with my first book that I read for this podcast episode, and it is We Spread by Ian Reed. And I love Ian Reed's books. He only has 3 of them if memory serves. He has I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and he has We Spread, which is the one I read for this, and he also has Foe. So he's only got 3, and I will tell you about We Spread. So technically, I'm a completist for this author, but he only has 3 books so far. So this one is about Penny, and Penny is an artist, and she has lived in the same apartment for decades. She has all of her things, and she's living a pretty quiet life. She's pretty lonely now that her longtime partner has recently passed away, and she is starting to find that things in her life are slipping. Now, she's not necessarily noticing that she's slipping, but the people that are taking care of her and her landlord and folks are saying, Penny, you kind of got to take care of this. Are you sure everything is good? And then Penny eventually has one too many incidents and she gets placed in a long term care residence. And this long term care residence is very unique because everyone's super welcoming. She gets there and they're like, "We've been waiting for you. We're so excited to see you." She's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know these people. Like, what do you mean?" And they're like, "You don't remember before your partner passed, you guys organized this." And she's like, "Okay." So she kind of just has no idea what they're talking about, but they're nice enough. And she starts to make friends while she's there. And she even starts to do her art again, which is very exciting for her. She's a painter and she hasn't completed art in a long time. And now she's starting to get into that again. And things are good. They wake up, they eat breakfast, they visit, they eat lunch, they visit, they eat dinner, then they visit and go to sleep, rinse and repeat. And things start to get very mundane and the days start to blur together. And Penny is getting uncomfortable with this because she is losing her grip on the passage of time. Like, how long have I been here? And she is being told that she's misunderstanding things. And she's pretty confident that she's not. She's pretty confident that she knows what all is happening. and she is really grappling with, is she succumbing to the subtle deterioration that can come with aging, or is she an unknown participant in something more unsettling? And that is what this book is about. I liked it fine. I gave it 3 stars, which I'm sad to say. I didn't love it like I loved his book Foe. I liked it less than I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This was the least successful one for me personally. Not because it's not a good book, but because I just never really got that into it. And it had a lot of dialogue, which normally is fine for
Mhm.
me. I don't really care. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I'm not like a full stop. I don't like that. But this one was a lot of dialogue and a lot of unreliable narration. And I think the author, in that sense, did a good job making the reader feel as confused as Penny did sometimes. I wanted a bit more of a further out view. Like, I wanted a little more because I'm like, is this, is she aging? And is this a memory? Is this an aging related brain disorder, or is something weird going on? Like, at what point am I going to find that out? You will get answers, and I think this is very atmospheric. It's a little bit hypnotic, and overall, it was fine. Not my favorite. I will still continue to read this author. I think he had a
Mhm.
lot of good things to say about aging, and
Mm.
specifically how we care or don't care for the aging members of our community.
Yeah.
And I what I loved is that he really painted the picture of, okay, all obstacles are removed. How do you spend your time? And how detrimental that can sort of be to a person's mental health, because
Mhm.
everything looks fine, but like, what do I do with all this time? What am I doing? I can only have the same conversation so many times with the same people. And for that, I appreciate what the author did. Overall, it's a lukewarm recommendation. You might like this more than I did, but those are my thoughts. That book is We Spread by Ian Reed.
Well, that book had a lot to live up to with how much you
I know.
loved Foe
Yes.
and, enjoyed his other stuff. So that is a super fair review. My book that I brought was Wild Reverence by Rebecca
Yeah.
Ross. I've read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I've also read the first book in her other series, A River Enchanted, and I've loved all of those books. So I was really excited that she was coming out with a new book in a series this year. This one is about Matilda, who is the youngest goddess of her clan, and she was born in the firelit underrealm and blessed with simple messenger magic. She carries words between worlds, but she also guards a dangerous secret that could end up getting her killed. Meanwhile, we have Vincent of Becket, who once dreamed of Matilda, and 10 years ago, on the worst night of his life, he wrote to the goddess who once comforted him in his dreams. She never answered, and he's since hardened into a cynical river lord until Matilda quite literally falls back into his life, landing through his window with a letter just for him. These two are drawn together, and Matilda and Vincent have to challenge the ruthless gods themselves. And for Matilda, that means facing something much more terrifying than war, her own heart. I didn't realize that this one was a prequel to Divine Rivals, but it makes sense because the gods and goddesses that appear in that series are loosely tied to, well, not loosely tied. They're tied to this story as well. But I don't think that you need to read Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows before diving into this one. I do think that it stands well on its own. The opening of this one literally felt like a Disney movie, and I mean that as a compliment. The way the character's story and lore is provided to you through this once upon a time type storytelling and world building technique that felt really nostalgic, and it worked for me really well. It was such a great way to immediately get immersed into this story without feeling info dumpy, but still giving you all of the information that you needed to know to fall in love with this world and follow the characters alongside it. It felt like the beginning of a folk story almost, but gave me those Disney movie vibes as well. Beautiful writing as always from Rebecca Ross. Her sentences are just so lovely. Usually with her books, I just want to highlight everything. And it's interesting because I don't always love stories about gods and goddesses, but they were so well developed in this one that it nearly humanized them and made them feel like they were actually a part of the storytelling instead of just props for the plot, which is where I think I oftentimes have more of an issue. Vincent and Matilda were so lovely and sweet. I loved them both so much. And I love a romance where I am truly rooting for both of the love interests, not when just one of them is more appealing to me than the other. I really cared about both of these characters. There was great political dialogue, great discussion of war and strategy in a way that was compelling and made me feel really invested in the outcome of everything. Da-da-da. I don't know how Rebecca Ross does it, but she makes war feel whimsical. And I feel weird saying that,
Right, right.
obviously, but in this fantasy setting, she really did give me that feeling. And she's just such a great writer. And I will continue to return to her. I really like this one, and I can't wait to finish the series. And that is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross.
I am so glad that you read this. I feel like whenever you bring
Yes.
like a fantasy or something, I'm like, oh, this feels like you're getting back to your roots. And it's a book in a
Hmm.
series.
Yeah.
I'm
A
very
duology,
impressed.
I'm hoping, like her other books.
I know, love it.
So
I know you love a
I'll know.
duology.
I
If I
sure do.
like, you do
I'll
love
never
a
stop talking about
duology.
it.
No, that's like me and half the stuff I say. I'm like, have I said this already? I don't know. I talk a lot about books, really.
We do a lot of talking.
We do a lot of talking, frankly. And I will tell you about my next book, which is Unraveling Oliver by Liz Nugent. And I love Liz Nugent. She earlier I alluded to this. She is an author that I hope to read her entire catalog. She has a new book coming out in 2026 that I did mention. I think I brought it as a shelf edition previously, but her book that's coming out in 2026 is The Truth About Ruby Cooper, and that comes out in March. But you might know Liz Nugent. She got some pretty good buzz last year, or actually a couple years ago now, geez, with Strange Sally Diamond, which is a book that I
Yes.
loved. I loved. This one is an older book from her, and it is about Oliver. And Oliver is a real piece of work. He really is. He has the perfect life. He is an elegant man and he wants for nothing. He is an author and he lives with his very loyal wife, Alice, who illustrate the award winning children's books that have brought them wealth and fame. So he is the author, she is the illustrator, and they have a pretty good life together until one evening, after eating the dinner that Alice has carefully prepared, Oliver assaults her and leaves her for dead. I'm very sorry to say it so
Oh.
bluntly, but that's Hannah just like snapped up, like, excuse me.
Well, like
And
assaults her so badly that she's left for dead.
literally, that is what this book is about. And this has one of the I'm not going to read you the first sentence of this because it can be triggering for sure. Look it up if you want to. The first
Uh-huh.
sentence is shocking. I was like, holy cow. So Oliver is pretty terrible. You know from the beginning that's what this is about, that he is a bad person. Now what I think Liz Nugent did so brilliantly for me is that she is not telling this story straight. It's not like a straight through, okay, let's go back and see how they met and see what went wrong and this and that. No, she is telling us about Oliver through the eyes of the people that knew him. And so you hear about Oliver from his mistress Moya. You hear about him from this French vineyard owner Veronique, who used to employ him. You hear about him from Alice's friend Barney. Barney. We love Barney. And then you hear about him from Oliver's college pal, Michael. And what none of them understands is the dark secret that lies behind his immaculate facade. And so this book switches point of view. And Oliver also gets a point of view as well. So you are hearing from him and you're hearing about, the things that he uncovers, because Oliver has a pretty deep secret that he would absolutely not want anybody to find out. I loved this book. Liz Nugent is just so dark and just really good at crafting a complex story. Don't pick this up thinking it's a thriller. I would say consider this maybe literary suspense, because you are wondering what Oliver's secret is, why he did this to Alice. and what's going on here, right? And you're sort of
Mhm.
figuring that all out. And she just peeled the layers of this onion so incredibly well. It almost read like historical fiction in some ways. And because I don't know what year this takes place. Gosh, throughout the book, you're kind of working back in time. So it's definitely not present day. I would say 70s maybe. And yeah, by 1973. Okay. So, that time period, I loved the side characters just as much as I was invested in finding out what's going to happen to Alice. I mean, I'm talking college pal Michael, Barney, Veronique. They all have these rich stories, and I just think this book is fantastic. I want to mention I did DNF this the first time I tried it
Mm.
because the first chapter, I was like, this guy is a trash bag, and I don't want to read about him. But
Yeah.
just trust and know that the author is in on it, and we know that. We're not trying to redeem him, we're trying to understand. And it's more so the author is interviewing the people that knew Oliver essentially and are all sharing the little bits and pieces about him that make you come to understand how a person can get to this point. Really good story. And I love Liz Nugent. I will continue to read her books. I'm sitting between 4.5 and 5 stars. I loved it. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's a really excellent story. So that one is Unraveling Oliver by Liz Nugent.
I didn't know you were bringing this one at all. I mean, I guess I didn't know you were bringing We Spread either, but every once in a while
Surprise,
I'm just like, "Oh, I had no."
surprise.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea she was even reading that or gonna
That
bring it." So, that's
I
fun.
did read this very quickly, so.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's always fun when that happens. Okay, my next one, ugh, is kind of a bummer, and I'm a little
Oh.
disappointed in it, but it's People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young, and I have previously loved this author, and I even brought one of her books to our winter reading guide for this year,
Mhm.
and this one is about Prudence Welch, who has built a quiet and contained life in her small northern Ontario town. She is working at her dad's gas station, writing poetry, and caring for her mom, who is living with early onset Alzheimer's. She once dreamed of living Baysville behind, but now just keeping things steady feels really challenging. And then we have Milo, who rolls into town in a beat up van plastered with terrible bumper stickers, and suddenly Prue's world tilts. He is charming, he's mysterious, and exactly the kind of distraction she didn't know that she needed. What starts as an unlikely friendship turns into a fun romantic arrangement, one that pushes both of them completely out of their comfort zones. So, I will say, I loved that we had a bisexual love interest. I just loved that inclusion, and it added just a great element to Milo's character. It really made him stand out and feel really fully developed. Wow, my notes are really terrible for this one. Sorry, hold on. I'm like, wow, they're just
Good.
like really random. Um, my notes for this one are a little bit chaotic, but it's really funny because the next thing that I wrote was Milo calling her killer in the bedroom over and over again only killed the vibes for me.
Yeah,
And
I could
so
see that.
that was my note that I had there. And I just thought that was funny. So I wanted to include it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the tropes in this one just fell pretty flat for me. And while I really appreciated these characters, I just wasn't fully believing their actual romance. But I will say that I think that this book handled family sickness and illness better than kind of what I was expecting from Abby Jimenez's 2025 release, her newest book this year, Say You'll Remember Me, which ended up really disappointing me. This book, I think, ended up tackling that situation and weaving it into the plot line better than what I wanted from that book. However, that also meant that this book was really sad, which was not what I was
Mhm.
looking for right now. It was definitely still hopeful and there was still lightness and there was this romance, but it also was just very realistic and painful in so many parts. And I think that it was one of those situations where I don't know if this book was bad. I know it's not. I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't the book for me at the time. I will continue to read from this author moving forward because I think that this was a one time disappointment for me. It just wasn't what I was looking for. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, did not hate it. It just didn't live up to her others for me personally. And that is People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young.
I hate when that happens,
I
right? When you're
know.
like, "Ugh, I was excited for this. It had elements that you wanted to work and it didn't quite get there." I was wondering about that comparison between Abby Jimenez's book and this one,
Yes.
and I'm glad to hear this one sounds like it was handled maybe better.
Yes, but also take that for a grain of salt because I don't have a family member that has
Yeah.
Alzheimer's or early onset Alzheimer's. So I can't speak personally to that
Yeah.
experience, but just from a writing perspective and her talking about the characters' emotions and how they were feeling and overall writing, I personally think that this one did a better job.
I can hear that. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you. Thank
What
you
a
for
what
sharing.
a serious reaction to you.
Well, it was a serious subject, I guess, on the book too. So,
Exactly, and that's I guess where I because it can be hard to offer a not so glowing review on something that obviously tackles something pretty upsetting.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, we will end the show as we always do with our shelf editions. And I'm holding a book here, and I quite like what I've got going on. It's a very colorful cover. It's called Hush Little Fire by Judith Newcomb Stiles. And thank you to the author, actually, because she sent me a copy of this through
Oh,
her
that's so
publisher.
nice.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it's signed. And she sent me a little chocolates as well. So turns out apparently I can be bought, but I really did. I love the sound of this story. Okay. So this is about okay, this is interesting. So the author is Judith Newcomb Stiles, and the main character is Mary Newcomb, spelled differently with an E on the end. Interesting. Okay, doesn't really matter, but okay. This one is for fans of Lessons in Chemistry and Where the Crawdads Sing, and it's about Mary, who dutifully returns home to Cape Cod with her 12-year-old son to celebrate Christmas with her adoptive mother, Bertie. And the only part of the trip she looks forward to is digging beach clay for pottery to stoke her beloved kiln. But while she's home, a suspicious fire destroys the town's health clinic, and Mary becomes a leading suspect. Mary has a foggy idea of what happened that night. She had too much eggnog, and as always, her mom isn't talking. Bertie has kept secrets from Mary her entire life, beginning with the truth about Mary's birth mother. When Mary discovers her adoptive father made a lot of money performing pre Roe versus Wade illegal abortions in the clinic that burned to the ground. She's done with being kept in the dark. As the days tick by and pressures mount to find the arsonist, Mary digs deeper into Wellfleet's history and more secrets start to unfurl. There's a cousin that's acting weird, and suddenly so is somebody else. And the FBI comes in and are zeroing in on Mary when another fire burns in the harbor. And it becomes time for Mary and Bertie to face a long brewing reckoning. They're calling this a cross generational mystery told through the perspectives of four women living on the underbelly of Cape Cod. I quite like the sound of that. I am intrigued. If you want the two-sentence review, secrets implode and generations of lies boil over into deadly consequences when a suspicious fire breaks out on Christmas night on Cape Cod. I think that just gives you just enough for what you can expect with this book. But I am intrigued. This book is Hush Little Fire by Judith Newcomb Stiles.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
I'm
I am really
intrigued.
excited about my shelf edition, which is a book that is coming out. Oh, no, it already came out. It came out in September. It is A Land So Wide by Aaron A. Craig. And this one sounds perfect for fall reading. And I actually just picked it up and I'm excited to potentially bring it for an episode soon if all goes well. This is set in the isolated village of Mistaken and no one can leave. The town is built by a wealthy lumber merchant and thrives on its natural resources, but the surrounding woods hide terrifying creatures called the Bright Eyes. And to keep them out, Mistaken's founders struck a deal with a mysterious force known as the Benevolence. And they place warding stones around the village. The catch, though, is that anyone who spends a night inside Mistaken is now trapped there forever. In this story, we're following Greer Mackenzie, who is a map maker and a restless dreamer. She has always longed to see the world beyond the stones, but when her fiance, Ellis, vanishes beyond the village borders on their wedding day, Greer refuses to accept his loss. And she finds a way to hopefully break the curse, set out into the wild, and find Ellis. Apparently, this is inspired by Scottish folklore, and this is this author's adult debut. I obviously can't speak to the ending, so I'm not saying this as a spoiler, but so far the vibes of this one feel like the movie The Village.
Mm.
If anyone has ever seen that, it's like a classic, kind of campy, not really campy, but it's a classic horror novel. And for those who have watched it, they know how it ends. I've obviously just started this, so I have no idea how it ends. So, no intention of spoilers by that comp at all, but just this village that you can't leave, and something sinister is happening, but nobody knows what. There's kind of these selkies or forest creatures that are these magical beings. So, gives those vibes so far. Anyway, that is A Land So Wide by Aaron A. Craig.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
Well, that's it for us for today. All right. Well, that is it from us today. We thank you for spending a part of your day with us. Links to all the books mentioned can be found in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, you can help us by following wherever you listen and by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get our show out to new listeners and grows our audience. And don't forget, if you'd like access to exclusive bonus content and community, you can join us for $5 a month on patreon.com/booktalk, etc.
And if you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at booktalketc@gmail.com. You can also connect with us both at Booktalk Etc. on Instagram and YouTube. You can find Tina at TBR Etc. and Hannah at Handpicked Books. Talk to you next week, and in the meantime, remember,
everything's better with books. Actually, this is funny. I took PTO next week because I'm kicking off my birthday week. Next week, Friday. It's our birthday week, actually, but I'm taking a PTO day on Friday to deal with this. Let's see if I can get the camera to deal with this, to deal with that. You see it?
Okay.
You see it?
Is that like
my
a
TBR
book mail
shelf
situation?
Nope. This is just all TBR or books I should say that I haven't read. So I need to do some culling. I need to get rid of some. I need to figure out my life, and I'm excited.